HP has done me proud for a long time now. I've had several of their laptops and quite frankly I've never had an issue whatsoever. They've been an absolute dream to use, and for this reason we quickly jumped at the chance when HP reached out to us to check out their brand new HP EliteBook 845G7, a matte silver powerhouse which is now powered by AMD Ryzen. Inside the HP EliteBook that was sent through to us is an AMD Ryzen PRO 4750U with a base clock of 1.7 GHz and a boost clock of up to 4.2 GHz. This is backed up by 16GB of RAM memory, although there are models that you can customize yourself to put in more RAM if needed. HP's website states that up to 32GB of RAM can be available. Same kind of thing with the processor as well. We've got the highest configuration, but you can opt for something less beefy if your budget doesn't quite stretch to the highest version. The lowest is an AMD Ryzen 3 Pro 4450U APU with a 2.5 GHz base clock and a 3.8 GHz max boost clock. Both processors have a built-in AMD Radeon graphics, which helps when it comes to a bit of heavy lifting. So with that in mind, we ran a few benchmarks to really test what the HP EliteBook is capable of, and it proved to be some very interesting results. First up is PC Mark 10, which threw back a score of 4,539 with particularly strong scores across the board in laptop essential software like webcam conferencing and web browsing, all the way through to photo and video editing. Running Photoshop was an absolute breeze for this machine, and rendering out a 10-minute 4K video on Premiere Pro on the match source high bitrate preset took around 6.5 minutes, so not really too bad at all. So moving on to gaming, and we ran the Night Raid benchmark as it prompted us that it works best with processors with integrated graphics and received a score of 13252. Now what is interesting is the fact that it comes with the AMD driver software for the APU and asks what type of performance you want to get out of the laptop. Now I chose standard settings, but you can choose a gaming profile too, even though this laptop isn't really aimed at gamers. It just gives you a little bump in performance. And lastly, we ran a Cinebench benchmark because why the hell not? We are testing work performance after all. And on a multi-core score, it provided a pretty impressive score of 7240 on a multi-core benchmark and 1121 on a single core benchmark. It is safe to say that the HP EliteBook is a pretty solid piece of kit when it comes to performance. Of course, with any laptop like this, which is more focused towards work rather than gaming, it's not going to be able to pull out great FPS in a game of Black Ops Cold War. Now the laptop is coated in a matte silver aluminium, which feels very tough to hold, and the shell is a bit of a fingerprint magnet, especially for greasy fingers, but it was easy to wipe down with a microfiber cloth. The HP logo on top, you will notice, isn't the usual traditional logo found on their other laptops. It's more modern now, it's had a refresh, it adds some style to the usual branding you'd expect to find. Putting a small amount of pressure on the top of the case sees the screen flex, but it isn't a huge amount, but I would recommend putting something heavy on the top of the machine. There are two types of HP EliteBooks which come in a different weight. Mine was the non-touchscreen version. It weighs at 1.33 kilograms, which is fine to carry around in the office or in a bag. And the touchscreen version comes in at 1.46 kilograms, which is again not bad, it's just a little bit heavier. On the bottom you can find two rubber feet which span the base of the laptop and keep it raised off of a surface, as the cooling solution, which is the grill across the center, can be found on the bottom too. Now don't worry, there are some small grates across the rear of the device as well, just under the hinge. The HP EliteBook is pretty generous when it comes to its inputs as well. Down the left hand side you can find two full-size USB 3.1 Gen 1 inputs, as well as a Kingston lock and headphone microphone combi input. Further towards the front you can find a smart card reader, which is something you don't really see too often on notebooks. And down the right hand side are two USB Type-C inputs, which also double up as charging ports. Well, on this one here they did anyway, as my power brick has a USB Type-C connection. There's also a HDMI 2.0 port, a micro SD card slot with support for SDHC and SDXC, and a more traditional charging port. Like I said, it's pretty generous and you've got everything you need to work without the need for additional dongles, which I absolutely love. I hate carrying around an extra dongle, and if you forget the dongle, then you're screwed. Opening the laptop and straight away you can feel the quality of the hinge. There is a stiffness to it that enables the laptop screen to stay where you move it to, and wobble is kept to an absolute minimum. The hinge is of a decent quality for sure, and the first thing I noticed though when I opened the laptop is the fact that the little nub mouse cursor controller has remained. It's an old technology, but rather than being a small physical joystick, it's a sensor. It feels like a right throwback to laptops past, but in reality, it's actually pretty useful, especially if you need to zip across the screen quickly while typing something. There is, though, the traditional trackpad at the bottom, which is smooth but grippy enough to accurately track your mouse. And there's also two types of mouse clicks. There are the two built into the trackpad itself, and there are also physical buttons just above the trackpad too. It does feel like HP are really trying to appeal to all audiences with this laptop, and unfortunately, because of this, loses a few points for style once the laptop has been opened. In terms of bezels around the screen, these are far from low profile, but they're not really hugely thick either. The frame certainly helps with the robustness of the laptop build, but the top bezel is thicker than the others, and that's because it houses the webcam, which films in 720p. And during the daytime, the picture is definitely usable when on calls with your colleagues on like Zoom or Teams or Zooms, as long as you're not being hit by lots of light through a window. But during low lighting situations, the camera can appear grainy and overexposes area where light is coming from, which you can see in the video on the left-hand side of my face and also from my desktop.
So this is just an example of the webcam quality. I have got my PC on to my right, which is why there's this kind of purpley pinky tone across my face. The window is fully open, the blinds are up. So of course, dynamic range of this camera isn't the best because the window is very, very blown out. But the actual sound quality of the microphone, I think, is actually very, very good. And the way that it plays back through the speakers, it sounds okay when you're on your Zoom and Teams calls and talking to friends and colleagues during meetings and things like that.
The microphone, though, is noted as a 3 multi-array microphone, and the audio quality actually is pretty good, and my voice did sound pretty clear, so I am happy with that. The screen hits a max resolution of 1920 by 1080 and uses IPS technology to produce nice and bright, vivid colors. Its max brightness sits at 250 nits, so it's not the brightest in the world, but it does look great when watching media, especially in dark scenes. It's also nice and sharp too, making text very readable on websites. It does, however, use HP's SureView technology, which reduces viewing angles. Now, this ensures that people who are off to the side of your screen can't see directly onto the screen, keeping secure documents safe in office environments. It also only hits around 45% of the NTSC color gamut, which is unfortunately quite low to really hit those natural, realistic looking colors, and will definitely hinder any color work you'll be doing on your videos or photo editing. The keyboard is fully backlit, although no RGB here. HP are keeping it fancy. Travel distance while typing isn't too bad either, and it's nice and light enough to touch type. The keys feel like membrane technology, so you've got a bit of a spongy feel, though there's no wobble to the keys themselves, which makes typing feel more solid. At the bottom right hand side of the keyboard, you can find a fingerprint reader, which opens your windows pretty quickly and also quite accurately as well. I've not seen an issue with the reader misreading my fingerprint or even stuttering with an unlock. It's just all been pretty solid. Down the left and right hand sides of the keyboard are speakers, which sound pretty decent and give you some stereo sound effect. They also have a diamond grille, which matches the laptop's new sharp aesthetics, especially with the logo. They're powered by Bang & Olufsen, so you already really know they've got a bit of power to them, and listening to music on Spotify was actually quite a pleasant experience. Audio through VoIP calls with friends and colleagues was also pretty decent as well, and I never had any feedback that the people I was speaking to had any kind of echo in their voices. The HP EliteBook 845G7 laptop is an absolute workhorse of a machine. Now, okay, it's not the most stylish laptop out there, but it does the job and does it well. I particularly liked the attention to detail with the nice bright screen and the detailing, like in the speakers and the logo. The backlit keyboard is always a bonus in my book as well. The laptop dealt with everything I threw at it, although of course the most that I can throw at it is editing my photos on Photoshop and some YouTube action editing videos for the TechNuovo YouTube channel. But I was impressed nonetheless. The HP EliteBook with the AMD Ryzen PRO 4750U that we've reviewed can be found on the HP website for around £930. Thank you very much for checking out our video of the HP EliteBook 845G7 laptop with the AMD Ryzen PRO 4750U. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. Please subscribe to keep up with our latest tech and gaming videos, and also let us know in the comments below what you think about this HP EliteBook. Also, you can find us over on Twitch, twitch.tv/TechNuovo. We stream games over there from 8:30 onwards on a Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. That's UK time, 8:30 PM onwards. Come and ask us a question about tech, about this laptop, about games that we're playing. Come in and join the conversation over on Twitch. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.